This conference will now be recorded.
Can I only share the screen? I can't share an app?
You can share an app underneath the screen sharing widget there. You can choose main screen or any of the apps that you currently have open.
Oh, okay. No wonder. Okay, you guys see this?
We do.
Okay, so in an earlier discussion with Alfie actually said he had a presentation to give, so I didn't know. That's why I pinged him to see if he was ready for that presentation. So, for today's business, I want to go figure out exactly what the process is to formalize OpenBNC as a sub-project to hardware management project. So, Bill, whatever information you can provide would be good. So, because we made a proposal, is that final, or do we have to take that to the IC to get it approved as a sub-project?
Yeah, good question.
And if,
So there is a aspect of creating a charter that I think we've actually started on, but there are some other aspects that we've outlined. I'll see if I can find a link to it because we did document it's the process to create. We do have a process for embedded software project creation. It simply involves, creating a charter and then establishing a repository and establishing contributors to that repository. And once we have 2 or more companies that are contributing to the repository, that we've met the goals of establishing the project and as well as the creation of a charter, and then it formally becomes a formal project after that.
okay, so is this a different charter, or is this an extension of the hardware management charter?
Good question. I think that we have liberty to do it either way. And honestly, John, now that you mention it, I can envision that it may make sense to have one charter for hardware management and treat this as an extension of that.
Right. Since we have just approved the hardware management charter again, so we could just go back and add this.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to do that. I mean, it's all, I think, what we're trying to achieve is a tightly coupled management solution, and this would be a ingredient of that.
Okay, so prior to that, so as we generate a charter and establish it, so right now this is extension. Okay, so that means we don't need a separate repository yet for documentation. So if we have separate documentation for this subgroup, can we now just place it within the hardware management
Sure.
wiki and document storage? Okay.
Sure.
For storage, is there a permission needed, or anybody can upload the documents?
Right now, I go through the project leads, so that's why I have notify the project leads that OpenBMC has been established. It's going to be placed under you guys. So we're going to start placing documentation directly into your wiki and spec areas. So we'll have to arbitrate exactly whether we have to go through their projects, their project leads, or we can, whether the co-chairs of the subgroups can submit documents directly into at least our section.
Okay.
That makes sense. I think they should allocate a section to us, label it open RMC, and just let us do whatever we want as long as we're trusting and we don't go hack on the rest of the wiki.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so establishing. So charter. We know what we're going to do. We're going to extend the hardware management charter. So I'll take that since I just hacked the last one. And PJs. So for the repositories, is there a repository that the Open OCP owns that we can just add additional repository to it? So an OCP GitHub?
Yes, there is. Yeah. And Rajiv done some work on it. Maybe he can give us an update.
Sure. Let me share my screen for a bit, and I'll tell you what I have it so far related to this new RMC initiative. And Sriram, can you hear me? I see you logged in as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm calling over phone, but I also have the screen share in another monitor.
Okay. Do I have to stop sharing to let him share, or can he just grab control?
Yes, if you could stop sharing, and I think Michael will give me the control,
okay.
Then I should be pretty quick in terms of explaining our GitHub portfolio and what projects do we have it, and the place for this project, right? So if you could just.
I've surrendered.
Mm-hmm. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
So I'm sure most of you guys are already aware of our GitHub repo. We have many, projects, software or hardware currently listed here. For example, we have the Sai, Oni. But primarily for this call, I actually did create 4 repos. If you see right there, they are all related to the Project Olympus Rack Manager. What I did was these repos were previously hosted onto the Microsoft GitHub repo, and I imported all of these 4 into our OCP environment. And I think what Sriram has to do is to ask developers to, update this code base, because it appears to be a year and a half old. And we can always change the structure, because what's going to happen is, currently we have 4 repos, and if other contributors, like let's say Inspur, have 3 repos, then now we have 7 repos. But the question here is, how should we structure it within this environment? And one more thing is, in GitHub, you cannot have a repo inside a repo. So I think what I need to do is to document in terms of what are the different repos that construct this Open RMC project, and who are the folks that would be involved in building or contributing to those respective repos. And this is what I envision right now, but this is totally in our control. We can totally change it, convert these repos into directories and subdirectories. But what we need to do is to change the make files and the build process to make sure that they are picking the files from the right locations. But again, the first goal is to get all the repos from the folks who are contributing it into the open compute, and then we take it from there.
So when you say importing it, do you mean copy or do you mean fork?
No, so both are great options, but it depends on, say, for example, in let me see if I still have the okay. So in this case, I completely imported. I did import. For example, if I click here, so import repo. and then actually I need to go to the source from where I need to import to Open Compute. So what I do is when I go to the Microsoft repo that I want to import, then I click here, open to the Open Compute project, then I give it a name. And then I don't
Right.
need to private, I make it public. But the reason why I didn't do fork is that per what Sriram told me is that, and what I think the discussion that we had with Bill and Brian was that going forward, we will be using Open Compute Project Olympus repo for future development. So that's why I was asking Sriram to have the developers update this code, because in my previous conversation with Sriram, he did mention that these 4 repos are a bit stale and they needs to be updated. But to your question, no forking, because this would be the main portal going forward where everybody, all contributors will develop considering this as a foundation.
So we have whatever contribution documents for all 3 of these repos, so we can take control of it.
Yes, that's absolutely yes. I mean, what I need to do, yeah, that can be done.
And where's that documentation?
We have not. It's very first. I think I can work on the documentation. I mean, that's not an issue at all.
But we need that documentation before we start directing people to make changes to this. Don't we?
We do, but I think maybe I need to talk to you and see what are the things where the changes needs to happen, and who are the contributors, and then I think based on the information that I have, I will quickly work on that. Right now,
so if someone else makes a contribution, because I heard that Inspire was also trying to make a contribution, and we have, let's say, 4 repositories for them, then how are we directing efforts within this work subproject for this? Do we encourage people to make changes to both of them, and then we're supporting 2 contributions?
That doesn't make sense.
I know, that's why this, I think we're jumping the gun here. I'm trying to figure out where we're going to end up, because I thought we were going to end up with a single rack manager source space, and that's the one we're taking forward.
Yes, John, you're correct, and I think the answer is we are not there yet. The first pass would be to have one place where we get all the previous work that has been done related to the auto band management. For example, what you see on your screen from Microsoft, and similarly Inspire or whosoever, let's have a common place where we get all the work, and then I think we need to work on how to converge all these into one piece part, and then we use that as a source for further development.
So I would say we don't need a common place. We know where this stuff is. It ain't moving anywhere. It's in the Olympus source repository. Inspire will give us a reference to their repository, and there we have pointers to all the repositories that are being submitted. And we use that to do our assessment, and then we will build one repository here, which is the OpenBMC repository.
So are you
don't see?
Go ahead.
I don't see the value of doing a copy or import from there to here.
The reason for doing that, John, is it becomes very easy for us to track, maintain, count the number of commits, understand, who is involved, and create a metrics out of it in one place, than looking into different organizations and then looking into it. That's the goal, where what we envision is to have in one place for project management as well.
I don't think we need that. I don't think this makes it any easier, because you've cut yourself off from the GitHub repository tree in history that's already in Olympus, right? Because when you do that, well, I say I don't know what export means. Right? Have you dragged across all the issues and all the merge history for this GitHub?
Right. So for this, Go
Or
ahead,
have you
John.
just reestablished a new repository source code tree and lost all the history?
No, it has everything in it. So when we do import, for example, in this case, let me click on the last repository, Project Olympus Rack Manager, and this has all the history. You see here there are 5 commits that happened in the past, and in this example, not much work has been done, but I have not lost the history. I have not lost track of what has been done in the past.
So John, I'm not claiming this was the right thing to do, but we think it's the right thing to do, was to take the Project Olympus Rack Manager, which we believed was the most comprehensive code base for this function, and start with that as a starting point. Now, the version that has been open sourced that Rajiv copied from is actually a very old version. And the folks at Microsoft had said that they were willing to refresh that with their latest. And so the first step was to actually establish the repository under the Open Compute GitHub site. The second step then is to refresh that with the most current code from Project Olympus, and then use that as the starting point for the Open RMC project.
Okay, and so Microsoft has signed off to refreshing the open, the OCP version repository that we've migrated over, as opposed to going back to the original.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Well, once that, okay. Now, if they're on board to go do that, then I have no problem with it.
Yeah. At least that was our understanding. That was the case. And Rajiv can probably
Okay.
on that.
Sriram can confirm.
Yeah,
Sriram.
that's correct. We will shortly update the Open Compute Project Olympus repository with the latest code base.
That's great, Sriram. Thanks for doing that.
And then because that gives us kind of our initial code and I'll call it kind of a known good starting point. And then what I envision is that we then add additional, functions to it, or machine data into it. So this would allow Inspur or anyone to add new machines into that and then add functions into that. But it would all be built on this code base once it's refreshed.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, it's Alfie here. So we haven't populated into GitHub in relation to the BMC, the RMC stuff. So I suppose we don't have to do that, or do we still need to do that and copy or export to this new structure?
And Bill, I can take this question. So yeah, Alfie, what I need to do is, the way I did it with Microsoft, what I need to do is I'll set up a call with you and get more information in terms of the previous work that has been done by Inspur and how many repos that you guys have it. And then as the way I did it for Microsoft, I will import make a copy of it into our OCP GitHub ecosystem. LP, are you still there?
Yeah. Is it?
Okay.
I thought somebody was talking. Yeah, I thought somebody else was talking. Yeah.
So Alfie, if you do not mind, can you give us a high-level information in terms of how many repos do you have it for the work that has been done?
We haven't started putting it up yet, and I think we're gonna do that, and exactly when I have to get our team together and figure out the schedule of putting it up in GitHub. So in the next meeting, I guess in 2 weeks, we'll make it clear.
Okay. Thanks, Al.
So what I envision here is rather than having another set of directories or repos that is added, is that once we get the Olympus refreshed, that, for example, on the Meta Rack Manager repo, which has the builds and recipes for machines, that we would then add the machine data for an AST based solution, versus an ARM based solution, but basically build additional recipes in the Meta repo.
So does that assume that the INSPIR repository is some fork of the Olympus repository?
Well, and it isn't, and from what we understand is that that work is most of the work that was explained to us from INSPIR was work that they planned to do. So by getting this repo organization straightened out now, it then gives them a basis to build and use upon, rather than go back and try to merge things, which is then one of the problems that the OpenBMC tree an OpenBMC project has been facing. So we're trying to gather, open source code as a starting point, and then really drive everybody to use that from the very beginning, so we don't end up in a large exercise down the road of trying to bring this back together and knit it together.
So I at the last meeting, I didn't know if there was general agreement that we were going to start from the Olympus tree repositories. So is everyone on board with that?
I think at high level that looks right solution instead of having multiple repos. But implementation wise, we have to look for like how much we can leverage, because some of these things are like there is no dedicated hardware. There is a Python code, for example. It's not exactly like fit into like this structure. So everybody has to look at the structure and see like how much of the code can be shared.
Okay. And Alfie for INSPIR?
Yeah, it's not, our code base is not a fork of the Olympus project. So I tend to think that we would have two separate things. And
okay. So what I would propose, and that's what I thought, is that we've got other code bases and we're trying to get to a single repository. So I would propose that the current working assumption is that we start with Olympus, and that Alfie, you have INSPIR assess adding your stuff to Olympus and how hard that would be compared to some other proposal we might have, and size, since and I don't know if Facebook has stuff that it would also want to integrate into submit to the base, but you would need to assess what it would take to add stuff to the repository.
Yeah, we'll make the assessment and then report back.
Great. Then the decision is not etched in stone, right? It's a working assumption that we can actually move this subgroup forward with.
Yeah, that's sad. It's certainly not etched in stone. It just seemed like that was the best.
Exactly. I know we were moving toward that door. I just wanted to know how much concrete we had laid to get there. So that's fine. We have time since Microsoft still has to refresh whatever repository we have.
Is there any timeline that we can get?
Questions, Saib. Sriram, do you have any idea when do you think these code base will be updated?
We are currently working on a newer release. If this code base we can continue to use this code base until we have. I was thinking we are anyway going to make a release in a month, so we would rather update it with that release as opposed to the older one.
So structurally, like how common it is, like the new one versus the 2-year-old?
Structurally, it will be very similar. I mean, the 1.5 years old, it should be very similar. There aren't many changes to the basic structure in terms of the libraries and modules, I would think.
Any API changes or any of these build scripts, recipes?
So the API changes are all. I mean, it's all Redfish based, so it's all backwards compatible. There will be new versions. Any change to the existing API will be a new schema version. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
I think the question is this sufficient to start the assessment, or should we wait for the refresh?
Yeah.
I think it's probably this should be sufficient. I don't find any reason why we should wait for the new additions.
Do you have a bullet list of the changes that will be in the refresh?
Come again?
Do you have a bullet list of items that will be changed in the refresh?
I can send the release notes since the release in the I can send the release notes.
That would be excellent.
Great. Let me do that. So I just respond to
as upload the release notes into in any of these directories so that everybody can go through it. That would be great.
Yeah, as soon as I establish something with the hardware management group about a location for a repository, I'll send it out and you guys can place it there.
All right.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So is there anything else that we need? So Sai, for Facebook, are you guys planning to submit a repository or just do an assessment?
I think today we have the code in the OpenBMC kind of repo. So we are trying to see how much we can extract it out and then put it into OpenRMC framework. So that's the work that we should do right now.
Okay. So you're not gonna have we're not gonna have another import from another repository because we already.
Yeah, as Bill said, I would like to avoid that actually, and then merge it as much.
Okay, fine. That's more than good. Okay. Facebook does not have another repository.
Right.
Okay, I need to run for another meeting, but I think our Aaron is from Facebook is going to be there.
Guys, I also need to run for another meeting. Do you need anything from my end?
Yes, I actually. One is we need to set a meeting for another 2 weeks. Can we set a meeting at an hour as opposed to a half-hour boundary? And if so, would you like it at the 9 o'clock hour or the 10 o'clock hour?
On Tuesdays?
Yes.
Tuesdays I have 10 to 11. Yeah, 9 to 10 will work on Tuesdays.
Okay. Sai? Or whoever else needs sleep? Okay, I will try to set it on an hour boundary and keep it to half hour. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next is besides this processing thing, is there anything other business for today?
Hi, hello. This is Ari Helminen from Nokia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Just a quick question because I'm new in here, and I would like to double check that what sort of topics you will cover in this Subproject in the future. So I'm here just to trying to get the idea that what sort of people we would need from Nokia to participate to these meetings in the future. So in primarily you were touching this like a repo topic and where to store the source code, but anything else you will cover in this particular subproject?
Yes, we will cover the API, the interface that will be exposed by the rack manager controller on the northbound to anything above it. And we will also be talking about the requirements for the southbound interface that talks to an OCP platform.
Okay.
So that will be the quote charter boundary of this work group.
Okay. And when we are talking about the API for northbound, would that mean in practice the redfish or some other APIs?
The current working assumption is it will be redfish.
Sorry, can you repeat?
The current working assumption is that it will be redfish.
Okay, yeah. Then
and we may need some extensions to redfish to deal with stuff, but it will be based on redfish.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. It's that we'd assume it would include redfish and swordfish, and then there would be potentially other command line type extensions that we may desire to add to that. Obviously, as we add, over the next year or two, I can envision that we may add, rack level utilities that may kind of fall outside of the scope of redfish or swordfish. And so there may be some things that we'd want to add.
All right.
Okay. Any other business or questions?
No, I think I got the picture pretty much what I kind of envisioned before. So yeah, that just concludes and confirms. Thanks.
So if there's nothing else, no future agenda items. Next meeting will be November 13th. I'll take the 9 o'clock hour, and we'll actually try to keep it half an hour if we can. With that, I would like to go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 10:04. Guys, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks. Bye.